Welcome. So we're going to be working through these notes before us. It says, defining circular functions, sine and cosine. So let's begin by reading this. The position of point P on the circle can be described by relating the angle theta to the Cartesian coordinates x and y. So as you can see here, we have this point P, and we've got P of theta is equal to cos of theta, sine of theta. And this is what we went through in the first part of this lesson. So I encourage you to watch that just to get your head around what exactly this means. This is showing me that sine of theta corresponds to the y value, and the cos of theta corresponds to the x value. And hopefully you can see that. As you can see, the sine theta represents the vertical height and therefore represents this value here, and my cos theta represents my horizontal distance, which is therefore representing the x value there. As we went through in the first part, we filled out this table together. So we learned the following. So this was 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, negative 1, negative 1, 0, 0, 1. I'm not going to rehearse why we know this is true. If you want to know why this is true, just make sure you watch part 1, where we went through that in quite a bit of detail. Okay, let's now look at these. So it says evaluate the following. Now, as you can see, I've put a little unit circle there to help us out, but obviously as you progress through this topic, you should become more comfortable with doing this and shouldn't have to rely on a unit circle to help you out. But just as we begin, it is helpful. So if it's asking for cos of pi, we know that pi is just 180 degrees. So we're coming here, and we know that this coordinate right here is just negative 1, 0. So therefore, cos of pi is just going to be my x value, so it's negative 1. Because remember, cos is after your x value, so it means I just want that, which is negative 1. And we continue. Sine of pi. Well, again, that's 180 degrees, so I'm here. My point again is negative 1, 0. But now, because I'm after sine of pi, I want the y value. So in this case, it would be 0. So that means my answer to this one will be 0. And we continue. What about sine of pi on 2? Well, we need to know that that is 90 degrees, and we need to know the coordinate of this point is 0, 1. We know that sine is after the y coordinate, so it's going to be 1. Because sine is after the y coordinate, so it's after that one, so we know it's going to be 1. And then as you become more and more comfortable with this, you should be able to answer it without actually having to draw it on the unit circle. So for instance, cos of 3 pi on 2 would be 0. And the reason why I know that is because I know that it's going to take me to this point right here, and I know that this is 0, negative 1, 0, cos is after the x, so it's just 0. Cos of 2 pi, we should immediately know is 1, because it's just 360 degrees, so I'm coming back to this point, which is 1, 0, cos is after my x coordinate, so it's just 1. Sine of 3 pi on 2 will be negative 1, because it's just taking me down here, and this point right here is 0, negative 1, sine is after the y, so I know it's going to be negative 1. So again, don't always use these unit circles. As you get enough practice of this, you'll be able to do this quicker and quicker without them. All right, what about if you're given a negative angle? So here we've got sine of negative pi. Well, the same logic applies here, nothing new here. You're just going to think about it in terms of going clockwise. So now I'm going to go this way, but it's still taking me to this point right here, which I know is negative 1, 0. Sine is after your y coordinate, so it's going to be 0. So sine of negative pi is 0. What about cos of negative 3 pi on 2? You should be able to think this one through and be like, you know what, that's going to be 0, because it's going to take me all the way over here. So take note of the fact that I'm going clockwise this time, as opposed to up here where I was going anti-clockwise. Up here, what is the point going to be? It is going to be 0, 1. And then here, sine of 3 pi on 2, that will be negative 1, because it's going to take me down there. And I know that point right there is 0, negative 1. And sine is after my y. So that's kind of how we're thinking through these problems. Again, don't make the unit circle drawing too much of a crutch. You should be able to, with enough practice, do this without the unit circle. But hopefully that gives you a good understanding of how to approach these questions and how to do them. All right.